Hello, everybody. This is the December 6th uh, fellowship on Zoom, Fellowship of Spirit in Farmington, New Mexico. I'm Ron Holloway, and I want to welcome you, everyone who is here. I don't see any new people except for our speaker, which you will come to know and cherish as much as I do here in a little while. His name is Mark Z, as in zebra, Ovno. And I'm not going to say a whole lot more about him. You will make up your decision about the quality of him whenever you hear in a little while. And I'm sure that you will have him in as high esteem as I have. Fred, I'm glad you're here. I hope your eye's all better. Is it? Okay, great. I have to scroll through. Is there any newcomers? This is their first time or second time here? Pretty much, no. Susan is here from Belize, and Scott was here from Minnesota, and and Mark is from Santa Fe. So we're truly an international event. Okay, I'm going to mute everyone now. So everyone is muted. If I call on you, then you'll have to unmute yourself. But are there any announcements that we need to make at the beginning, Jerry?
Only one. I have bought the 2021 calendars for a fellowship. And I think what I'm going to do is put them in a waterproof box or a lidded box on the left-hand side of the front porch at fellowship on Monday. And anytime after Monday at 9 o'clock or so in the morning, you can go by and pick one up. There will be a box of them there. And so usually we have several left over. So if you need one for additional family members or whatever, please feel free to take a couple. But please go by and get yours. Don't forget, I'll try to remind you each week until they're all gone, but we want everybody to have these. We usually give them out this time of the year. So please go by and get yours. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jerry. So I apologize for not giving you a prior notice, but Cynthia, would you say a prayer for us?
Certainly. Father, Mother God, Mother Earth, Father Sky, we are so grateful to be gathered here today. And we are so grateful that we're in the arms of your loving presence. Bless the people that are here and bless the people that are part of our families that are not with us at this time. And so mote it be.
Thank you.
Amen.
Thank you. Fred, sing us a song. You're on.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Right on. Well, we're going to try something.
How's your eye? Report on your eye.
Oh, it's pretty good. I would say right now my eye's at about 70%. So it's gotten a lot better. I can see pretty well out of it again. It's still got a little bit of light sensitivity, obviously, and there's still a little bit of healing that has to happen on the inside of the eye. But they say it could take about 3 to 4 months. But by that time, I should have a new the cataract replaced in this eye too. So
Yeah. For those of you that don't know, Fred had a surgery for a detached retina less than a month ago.
Yeah, it was on the 9th of November. So, yeah, it was a lot of fun. Not fun. But I am very, very thankful that I can see again out of this eye. That is, it was an experience that I'll get into. Hopefully on Sunday, we'll talk a little bit more of it next Sunday. I guess it'll be my turn up to speak. So I think what I'll call this, call the speech is for those who have eyes to see, let them see. So we'll use that as the title and we'll go from there. But it is quite an experience in losing your eyesight. I'm sure some of you have already experienced like cataracts and things like that. And the glory of being able to see after they do the cataract surgery as well. But losing all your sight in one eye and then hoping and praying and some of the trials and tribulations of it, I'll share with you. Because I did learn some things, especially about meditating in pain. There's some powerful meditation is a powerful tool in controlling pain. And I'll talk a little bit about that too. So besides that, this song is I'm gonna play it on this new little piano here. This is I can't really show you this thing, but you can hear it. This is a Gibson electric maestro piano from the days when Gibson was called the Chicago Instrument Company. So this dates back into the 50s. This is one of the gifts that Ron gave me. So I'm going to try to play something on it today. And I still can't really see very well. So I'm going to do a song that I can do from memory. So this song is by U2. It came off of their Joshua Tree album. I think I've told some of you about the story of some of the writing that Bono does with lyrics. People have always asked him, about his thoughts about his relationships and stuff, because most people write from where they come from. And he writes a lot of songs about love. And this is about 15 years ago. Rolling Stones interview, they asked him, you must have had a pretty tumultuous relationship with your wife. You guys are going on so many years now of marriage, and you obviously went through a lot. We can tell from your songs. And he goes, "Oh, really?" Because I can't really. I only wrote a few songs about my relationship. And they said, "Well, what about this song and one and all these other titles?" And this was one of them, With or Without You. And he says, "Oh no, those aren't about my wife. These are about my relationship with God." So a lot of his songs are very, I guess you'd say, have a spiritual message into it. So does this one. And there's some obvious, I guess you'd say, Christ references too. So see if I can get the volume right. See the stone set in your eyes, see the thorn twist in your side. I will wait for you. Sleight of hand and twist of fate, on a bed of nails she makes me wait. I will wait for you. With or without you, with or without you. Through the storm we reach the shore and give it all, but I want more. And I'm waiting for you. With or without you, with or without you, I can't live. With or without you. With or without you, with or without and you give yourself away, and you give yourself away, and you give, and you give, and you give yourself away, with or without you, with or without you, I can't live, with or without you, with or without you. That's it.
All right. Thank you, Fred. Really good. Really good. Mike Rose has our spiritual reading today. And so I'm sure it's going to be very interesting. Are you ready, Mike?
I am.
Okay.
Okay, so this is something that I had heard Wayne Dyer sharing in one of his talks one time, and I just loved it, and I got it printed out, and something I keep handy. It's something I really enjoy, and it's it's about this lady named Portia Nelson, and she had been to a New Age seminar class of some kind, and one of the things they asked them to do was they gave each person 5 index cards and asked them to write a chapter of their life on each card. So, and this is what Portia came up with. It says, chapter 1 of my life. I walk down the street. There's a big hole in the sidewalk. I fall in. I'm lost. I'm helpless. It's not my fault, and it takes forever to find a way out. Chapter 2 of my life. I walk down the street. There's a big hole in the sidewalk. I pretend I don't see it. I fall in again. I can't believe I'm in the same place. It's not my fault, and it still takes a long time to get out. Chapter 3 of my life. I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I see it there. I still fall in. It's a habit. My eyes are open. I know where I am. It's my own fault. And I get out immediately. Chapter 4 of my life. I walk down the street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I walk around it. Chapter 5 of my life. I walk down a different street.
Thank you. Thank you, Mike. I always enjoy that. Oh. Well, I wish that I should have. Let me do something. Our main speaker today is Mark Z. Oldno, who's coming to us from Santa Fe. And just one moment, I need to bring up his bio, which he gave me, and which is more extensive. I can't remember it all by remember, I should have already done this.
That's okay. You could just say, I am that I am.
Well, he could say that, but I'm not him. Anyway, it was put out on our constant contact that his name was Mike Oldno, but actually that was a mistake. I think that Chris was doing it early in the morning, and she asked me that if I would apologize to Mark, and I already have, and he has accepted it and forgiven her completely. So anyway, so here we go. Without further ado, is Mark Z. Oldno, my brother.
And you know, there's that great old line, and we don't get to use it enough these days. You can call me anytime, anything you want. Just don't call me late for dinner.
Right.
Good morning, all. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. Special thanks to Ron for inviting me. it's an honor to be able to take some time or a few minutes and share with you something that I find absolutely astounding. I literally wake up on some nights thinking about this. A little bit of advanced caveat. The presentation is going to have a little bit of philosophy, a little bit of mathematics, a little bit of physics, and a little bit of Kabbalah, but not too much of any of those things. So we won't go too deeply into it, just enough to draw some illustrations. And I want to say that just to frame things for starts is that this is a wonderful time of the year to present what I'm about to present to you. You know, traditionally across many different cultures and across time in the Northern Hemisphere, the sun is apparently still moving to the south. The days are still getting shorter. But on December the 21st this year, I think it's like around 6 o'clock in the morning, the sun will apparently start moving back north again. So we have this wonderful time of the year where traditionally we go into contemplation, we go into a spiritual hibernation. That's not a withdrawal, it's an incubation, it's a turning back inside, and it's a planting, it's a harvesting of the seeds that we have planted within ourselves. So that's a time, this time of year has traditionally been reserved for that. And then very shortly, the light will begin to emerge back into the north. So again, we're going to have an opportunity here, I think, to sit and look at some interesting observations about who we are, about what creation looks like, and perhaps if there's a message in there from the Creator herself. And this is a neat time because, again, I'm not going to give you dogma. I'm not going to give you a lot of interpretation. I'm going to give you some really interesting observations and ask you to sit with them. They're Christmas gifts to you. So let's start by asking a question. Have you ever spent time to ask yourself a really fundamental question, and a question that's not unique to philosophy, but is the starting place of all philosophy? How do we know anything? Isn't it a miracle about creation that we can actually know something about it? We assume that our brains and our ability to be able to measure something, to interpret it, to run an experiment, to understand it, is part of nature. Well, there's nothing that says that there has to be a correspondence between creation and existence in the way our mind works. There's a small miracle to be had right there. Now, to dive just a little bit deeper about what that means, is there within philosophy, Western philosophy, there's generally three principles about knowledge, about that makes something knowable. First is that it's ordered. Again, read it between the lines a little bit. What a remarkable thing that we live in a universe that is generally ordered. I can take a ball and I can drop it, and 1 billion times in a row, it will fall to the ground. It is consistent, it is regular, it is ordered. Order is necessary for us in order to be able to point to anything as factual. There has to be at least a pattern. That makes something knowable. It makes it apprehendable. That again is not a given. That should leave us in awe that the universe itself, that creation is somehow knowable by our minds. However limited it might be, we can at least begin that process. And moreover, we can talk to each other about it. We can take those ideas, we can take that order that we know or that we can begin to point at, and we can express it. We can share it, and we can explore it together. Those three principles together, the Greeks, kind of the godfathers and godmothers of Western philosophy, labeled as with one principle. They labeled it as the logos of existence. You can see the word logos is built into all sciences, psychology, zoology. It's the logos, the ordered, knowable, expressible principles of that science. And gee, isn't it interesting that when St. John was putting together his gospel and he opened it, within the beginning was the word. The word is being translated from the Greek, the word logos. So St. John really is saying to us something really important about what the nature of God is. It's all of these things. That's what in Greek philosophy he would have been referring to when he labeled in the beginning was the word. Now, I want to dive just a little bit deeper into this mystery, that things can actually be understood by our small little minds. And a particular expression of this came from the early Greek mathematician Pythagoras. Pythagoras said, he said a lot of things, and he greatly influenced his student Euclid. So a lot of the foundation of modern mathematics, geometry, emerged from the philosophy, the foundations of Pythagoras. And Pythagoras, one of his observations was simply that God is a geometer. Sometimes you hear a more modern interpretation that he said God is a mathematician. He didn't actually say that, but tradition points him to saying that God was a geometrician. Now, the reason that he said that is because when Pythagoras looked out the window, he saw that same mystery. He thought, gee, isn't it amazing that mathematics actually gets at being able to describe the universe? And let's look at two numbers that do this in a particularly odd way, just to draw the illustration again. So the first one is the square root of -1. Now, if you know anything about mathematics, a square root is simply what number times itself will equal that number. So the square root of 9 is 3. 3 times 3 equals 9. Now, how do you get two numbers that are the same number and multiply them together to get a -1? If you multiply +1 and +1, you get square root of 1. If you do -1 and -1, you get the same thing. There is no number that you can point to that gives you the square root of -1. Now, again, without going into it too deeply, where it comes from is those old Cartesian coordinates that you used to see in grade school or mid-school, the y-axis and the z-axis, or the x-axis. If you put a perpendicular axis out, the z, so that you can measure three-dimensional space, that's where you can actually generate this, what's called an imaginary number, the square root of -1. But here's part of the mystery. That number, which is so hard to hold in our minds, but yet we've defined it, is absolutely required in order to travel from here to the moon and back. You can't do the calculations of the physics of gravity and of moving through space without invoking this number, which has no clear representation. We can know that it exists, we can point at it, but we can't readily and easily define it. Here's another example, more familiar to most of us, is the number pi, 3.14, on and on and on and on and on. Have you ever paused to appreciate the mystery that a number that goes on infinitely has no actual resolution in the real world, yet is included and defines all kinds of geometrical principles? You can't draw or define or measure a circle without reference to pi. So pi, this infinite number, this infinitely not defined number, plays a role in defining virtually everything that occurs in geometry, and by extension, the reality that geometry describes. That's an incredible mystery. Again, that there's an order to the universe that is apprehendable by us. And moreover, that as Pythagoras suggested, that it's particularly described or communicated or expressed through math and geometry. Let's look at this a little bit closer. And I want to share with you a quote from a guy named Eugene Wigner. Wigner was a Nobel Prize winner in physics. And I want to encourage you, if any of this turns you on, go online and grab this paper called The Unreasonable Effectiveness of Mathematics in the Natural Sciences. It's only like 3 pages long. It's in the public domain. You can find it online. It's readily, and it is a joy to read. It's not difficult reading. But this quote from above it comes from that paper. Wigner said, and when he paused, again, I just want to remind you that this is a Nobel Prize winning physicist. And in his older age, he paused in wonder, in awe, to look at the universe. And this is what he said. He said, the miracle, a physicist saying the miracle of the appropriateness of the language of mathematics for the formulation of the laws of physics is a wonderful gift, which we neither understand nor deserve. Now, it is my understanding that you all have been exposed, perhaps on a couple of different occasions, to the map of Quabala. Quabala is a Judaic system. It's actually kind of developed these days to be brought into the Western Hermetic traditions as well. Those are really 2 different kinds or flavors of Quabala, the traditional Judaic and the Western Hermetic. But Quabala offers a map, a description, very much like mathematics. It's a template, if you will, a guideline, a map, a rendition of the way that we can describe and rank and relate the universe. So it's what in proper we call a taxonomy. It's a system of ordering things and ordering principles so that we can understand how the world looks. How does it relate severity and mercy with each other? How do they achieve the balance of beauty? And generally, when people look at Quabala, this diagram is what they understand Quabala to be. This is called the Etz Chaim, the tree of life. It was put together in the 16th century by a rabbi named Isaac Luria. Interestingly, he's the only man besides Elijah who is referred to in Judaism as literally being holy. The tree is a lifetime study in Quabala. It is a part of the map of the geometry of the universe, if you will. But it's not the part of Quabala that I want to share with you today. The part that I want to share with you today is called Gematria. And this will also give us another way to look at the mathematical expression of God's creation. Gematria is a Greek word. It's not Judaic, of course, and it comes from the same root that we get the English word grammar. Now, this is going to sound like numerology to a lot of people. Numerology is a watered down, confused rendition of this system. There's something more here than just numerology. And I challenge you once again, if this tickles anybody, I'd be happy to have a longer conversation with you about it, or you can actually find a lot of this stuff very easily online. But here's the basic schema. We're not going to go through the whole thing, but here's the basic idea, what you need to know in order to understand where we're going to go from here. In old languages, in letters were hieroglyphic. They were both numbers and letters, and they generally represented an idea. And this was true of Hebrew. Hebrew, if you look at the letter Aleph, the first letter, it's not only the sound that Aleph makes, which is an aspiration. It's not quite equivalent to the letter A. It's more, it's the preliminary sound. It's the breath of God. So it's the first letter. It looks almost like a little swastika. And indeed, it looks like, if you orient it correctly, it looks like an ox. It looks like a cow with two horns kind of coming up. That is, in fact, what it's called. Aleph means ox. Here on the slide that you're looking at, you can see another rendition of the same idea. The letter B, or Beth in Hebrew, Beth means house. Bethlehem, the house of Ham. Bethel, the house of God. And Beth is not only the letter B, but it's the number 2. Ancient languages don't have separate numbers. They use letters to represent numbers. And so you can see this very interesting thing that suddenly emerges. Any given word has a numerical value, or it can be boiled down to a number. All you have to do is take the numerical value of each of the letters that are in it. So Aleph equals 1, Beth equals 2, Gimel equals 3, Daleth equals 4, and so on through the entire alphabet. And you can take any given word. You can take your name. You can take you can take anything and add it up and correspond it to other words. Now, there's a belief in Kabbalah that if two words have the same value, that's not a coincidence, that there's actually a correspondence that was built into the universe, because nothing God created is a coincidence. Everything reflects his or her glory. And so when we look at the construct of a word, even the construct and the value of a word, when two of them add up and reflect each other, there's a truth to be meditated upon that's hidden by the correspondence of those two words. Now, I can't go into the whole thing today, and this is not a lesson in Kabbalah. I'm only drawing this to make an illustration that'll follow. So this next point, you're going to have to take it with a grain of salt or take it with a little faith. But I'll tell you, and my background is in research science. I am a born skeptic. I have studied this stuff since the early 1980s, and it still blows me away almost on a daily basis. The things in the correspondences that can be found here, it goes on and on and on and on. And I got to agree, it is not just a coincidence. There is something about this thing called gematria that when you begin to play with it, when you begin to look at the value of words and compare them with each other, there are real patterns that emerge. Somehow or another, God is giving us a message hidden in the very words that emerge from our minds. I know that's a challenge. That's a really weird thing to hear. But if you don't believe me, go in, study this. You can find it online. And play with it a little while. There is a great book by a guy named Godwin, Godwin, called the Kabbalistic Encyclopedia, that just takes like a list of all the words that add up to 26. Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh is one of those words. Well, what are the other words that add up to 26 that might have a relationship or reflect back on that same value that Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh has, that the primordial sacred name has? So again, gematria suggests to us that there's a mathematical underpinning. to the very words that we use to describe the universe. Now, I just want to pause in order to give you an illustration of how this works. So we want to go back and we want to revisit a famous text from Exodus. Now Moses kept the flock of Jethro. He led them to the backside of the desert and came to the mountain of God, even unto Horeb. And an angel of the Lord, mind you, note that this was not God. This is a messenger of God. And an angel of the Lord came unto him, spoke to him from out of the midst of a bush. And Moses looked, and behold, the bush burned with fire, and the bush was not consumed. And Moses said, behold, I will turn aside now to see this great sight, why the bush is not burned. Now, notice the transition that occurs. And when the Lord, it's no longer the messenger, when the Lord saw that Moses had turned aside to see, he called to him from out of the midst of the bush, and he said, Moses, Moses. And he said, here am I. And he said, draw not nigh hither, put off thy shoes from off thy feet, for the place whereon thou standest is holy ground. Now, let's look at that passage from Exodus with a mathematician, a Kabbalist perspective. So if you take the letters of the name of that bush, because a little bit later, Moses would turn to that bush burning with fire, and he would say, you want me to go down into town and tell them I was talking to a burning bush? Well, they're going to want to know what's his name. It's almost like an old Bill Cosby skit. What is his name? What is your name? And the bush answers. God, speaking out of the bush, says, Eye Asher Eye. We translate that in English badly as I am that I am. It's actually a future tense. And a little bit closer translation, accurate translation would be, I will be what I will be. But if you take all those letters and the numerical value that the letters represent and you add them up, it adds up to the number 543. Now, if you take the name Moshe, an Egyptian root word, it wasn't originally Hebraic, it wasn't Judaic, it's an Egyptian root, and it means of the water or of the reeds, as Moses was placed into the water by his mother. Moshe adds up to 345. Now look at this. There's a mirror here. They're complements, they're reverse images of each other. Moses went up to the bush and said, who are you? And the bush said, 543. And he was speaking to 345. He's the mirror image. He's reflecting. They're reflecting each other. You can see this further on in the passage. When somebody says, here am I. So again, let's go back and remind ourselves about that in context. And when God saw that Moses had turned aside to see, he called to him from out of the midst of the bush. And he said, Moses, Moses. And he said, here am I. And he said, draw not nigh hither, put off thy shoes from off thy feet. Now, it's not clear in the text who's actually saying, here am I. It can be attributed to Moses answering God, or it can be a continuation of God, the bush, still saying, Moses, Moses, I am here. Now put off your shoes. That very ambiguity in the word hineni, the Hebrew for here am I, is also a suggestion, a reflection about an identity, about a relationship that exists between the two speakers, the two players in this scene here. Moses representing man, and the bush and the messenger representing the voice of God, the word of God. And we can see reflected in the mathematics of Kabbalah that mirror identity, that reflection. that again is seized upon and played by the ambiguity of the word hineni. Just to add one other piece that I find meaningful to this is that if you take the word Moshe, again, its value being Kabbalah being 345, and you add, so, and think of Moshe here as a symbol or a reference for the Judaic law, the Hebraic law, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. And we take the word Abe, which is one of the Hebrew words for love, and it's a primary word. Its value adds up to 13. If we add 345, the old law, the Judaic law, to the new law of love, 345 plus 13, it adds up to 358, which is the value of the word Messiah. So such that the Messiah represents the blending, the fulfillment of the old law through the new law of love. Now, I gotta say, of all the numbers in all of the universe, gee, isn't it? Boy, it's very darn coincidental that the numbers could relate to each other in this way, that they could actually tell, the numbers could tell the story of what the whole covenant, of what the whole relationship between the Old and the New Testaments goes on in many words and many chapters and many books to tell us. We can see it reflected in a simple notation within the mathematics of Kabbalah. Let's look at the same idea from a slightly different direction. This man is a famous physicist. He was also a Nobel Prize winner. His name was Wolfgang Pauli. Earlier when we were listening to I was listening to the discussion about when Jesus and Buddha met, one of the characters described was Harshish. And Harshish was described as liking to go out and party a lot. And Wolfgang Pauli was exactly the same way. In his day job, when he woke up, which was usually late in the afternoon, he was a Nobel Prize winning physicist. We'll go into what he won the Nobel Prize for in a moment. But at night, he went out to the Bauhaus and he drank and he partied and he womanized and he got into fights. And eventually, as a young man, he started to get nervous. He knew that his career as a world-class physicist was going to be limited if he couldn't get himself under control. So let's talk about briefly about what Pauli discovered. And then I want to tell you a story about what happened to Pauli that involves Kabbalah and the order of the universe. So Pauli won the Nobel Prize for his work on the discovery of the neutrino. But part of what went into that was an elucidation of a thing called the fine structure constant. This is really important in quantum physics. We're not going to go into a whole lesson on physics. I just want you to understand generally what it is. If you look at the illustration here, you can see a number of what are called spectrograms. This is the light wave of particular elements when they're combusted, when their energy is freed. And what you can see are these lines. And you can see how the lines are almost unique to each element. The little lines that appear within the colors. Indeed, those are almost like fingerprints of the elements. They represent where the electrons can orbit the central proton. Electrons can't just orbit anywhere that they want. They have fixed stages, and indeed, one of the weird things, and it gives us the word quantum, is that when energy is released, they don't gradually move into another orbit. They go directly into it. They're in one orbit or another. They're in one of these lines or the other. They cannot be in the colored areas in between. They can only be in the lines. Now, this is an incredibly important thing. It defines the properties of electromagnetism, a fundamental force that holds and glues the universe together, and it describes the very form of the universe. And what Pauli helped to discover was the formula that describes how these lines, how these orbital transition zones from element to element are related. And again, without going into all of the deep physics, what he discovered was that number is really fine-tuned. It's equal to about 1/137. In the past week, there was a paper released that has now further defined the value of this back even a few more decimals. So it's very, very well defined. Now, here's part of the mystery about this number. It's one of those numbers, one of those constants that is extraordinarily fine-tuned. We live in a Goldilocks universe. If this number was changed, if you went over to the fifth number to the right of the decimal point, that 9, and you changed it, you upped it one more so that the whole thing moved a little bit closer to 138, that little bit of fine-tuning would not allow carbon to form. And without carbon, all organic life forms would never be able to form. That's you and me. So the fine-tuning of the fine structure constant defines everything that we call form and matter within the universe. This is a fundamental number that most of us pay no homage to. Well, Pauli did. Pauli became obsessed with why is it, of all the numbers that you could have, just like, gee, isn't it interesting that Moses and Ayash are just reflections of each other, given all of the numbers that those names could have represented, that they fell on that particular combination. Pauli looked and said, how is it that the universe formed with this absolute specific number, that if it was off by even the tiniest little amount in either direction, we wouldn't be here to talk about it now. Now, later physicists have come along and come up with what they call the anthropic principle. Their answer to this is not particularly satisfying. But in modern physics, what they will tell you is, well, it just is because it is. And if it was otherwise, we wouldn't be here to talk about it. So live with it. Well, that's no answer. And Pauli wasn't satisfied with that. He was obsessed with what does it tell us about the universe? That this number is so precise, so exact. And so Pauli was kind of like a Kabbalist. He was trying to figure out what this number told us. What did it mean about God's creation? Well, remember, Pauli was a party boy. And so he, in his personal life, while he was busy obsessing about this stuff, in order to free his mind up, he would go out and drink at night and get into all kinds of trouble. And he knew he wasn't going to live very long if he kept doing this. So living in Munich at the time, he went to go see a psychiatrist. Well, Munich was the place to go at that time if you wanted to go see a psychiatrist. And the psychiatrist he happened to go see was Carl Jung. You can still read in Jung's papers the stuff where he talks about doing therapy with the physicist. He doesn't name him. He just calls him the physicist. Well, who he's referring to is Wolfgang Pauli. Now, Pauli, in the course of his therapy with Carl Jung, and Jung, mind you, was, you can see in his posthumously published Red Book, you can see by some of his later writings, was also a budding student of Western mystical traditions. So somehow or another, Jung and Pauli ended up talking about Pauli's obsession with the number 137, the fine structured constant. and what it implied about the nature and the formation of the universe. And Jung said, you know, that's really interesting. I think that you might benefit by talking with a friend of mine, a guy named Gershom Scholem. And he referred Pauli to Scholem. Scholem is the man responsible for Kabbalah in proper Judaic forms, being accepted by modern Judaism. Kabbalah was for a long time considered the mystical, almost the occult, the hidden side of Judaism, even though it's an old and very venerable part of the tradition. But it was through his academic studies that he brought Kabbalah back into the light of day. And if you're interested in academic Judaic Kabbalah, you will come across Gershom Scholem's writings. So he was very, very important in modern Judaic philosophy. Scholem and Pauli met, and Pauli described the fine structure constant, and he said, yeah, you know, what I'm really fascinated by is this, how specific it is to the number 137. Its value is 1 over 137. And Scholem was silent for a moment as the story goes. And then he looked up and he said, well, gee, you know, it's interesting. There's a part of our Judaic tradition called Kabbalah. Kabbalah, too, just like the fine structure constant, describes the formation of the universe. That's the Etz Chaim, that's the tree of life we looked at. It's a map for how all of the structure of the universe is laid out. That's what Kabbalah is. And Scholem said, and do you know what value the word Kabbalah has? And Pauli said, no, what? Well, at this point, you guys should be able to guess. It's 137. Kabbalah in Hebrew is read from right to left. Quaf Beth Lamed He. And you see the numerical value ascribed to each of the letters below it adds up to 137. Kabbalah and the fine structure constant, the two maps of the universe, one coming from physics, the other coming from Western perennial philosophy, both hit on the exact same number. Now, you can believe that's a coincidence, but once you start seeing all these coincidences start lining up with each other, it's hard to continue to believe that they're all just knockoff one-shot coincidences. Something is going on here. There is something regular that built into creation, built into our words, built into our very minds that reflects the order of the universe. And we see it here. I'm going to add one little final note to Pauli's chapter of the story. Pauli, as he lay dying, he was a professor at Princeton at this point. As he was on his deathbed in the hospital, going in and out of consciousness, the story goes that he looked up and he asked the nurse, what room am I in? Room 137. And Pauli, as the story goes, said, I won't get out of here. And he did indeed die in room 137. It's not just a philosophy. In Pauli's world, the number 137 came together from a bunch of different directions. Now, I want to offer you one final kind of Christmas gift. One other way to kind of look at the reflection between God and man, between creation and the creator. In our traditions, one of the names, the sacred names of God is Yod He Vav He, the ineffable name, the unutterable name, because we have lost the vowels. The word Jehovah, of course, comes from this. Jehovah is Yod He Vav He, with the vowel sounds from Adonai interspersed. So Adonai means the Lord, and it's the word that's used by a good reverend Jew whenever he comes across Yod He Vav He. He won't say that. he'll interpret it, he'll say Adonai. So when you take the vowels from Adonai and you put them in with Yod He Vav He, you get the word Jehovah. You get the pronunciation Jehovah. If you take the Yod and instead of writing it right to left, you take the name Yod He Vav He and you write it from top to bottom. So here is the Yod. The second letter comes down and forms He. In the middle here, you see Vav, and then the second He. If you write it from top to bottom, you get a little stick figure of a human being. The sacred name of God, when written in this direction, from top to bottom, descending from the heavens to the earth, from creation to the created, creates an image. God's very name contains an image, a reflection of the human being. This is called the Yosher. Yosh is a root in Hebrew that means upright. You get the word Yisrael, the upright of God, comes from the same root. One of the gifts that I would offer you, and if you've never done this, if this is new to you, I challenge you, please, 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 take sometime during this Christmas season, take 10 minutes and go do this someplace. When you're standing in line at the grocery store, when you're sitting in church, when you're just doing something, look at your brothers and sisters around you and see if you can see this name written over them. Can you see the Yod in their head? Can you see the first He in their shoulders and arms? Can you see the Vav coming down and forming the central trunk? And the second He forming their legs, their hips and their legs? Can you see the name of God walking, doing daily human created kind of business right in front of you all the time? That's an important reflection of God in his creation. So in summary, I just want to say, you can look in mathematics, you can look in physics, you can look in Kabbalah, you can look in art, and you can see time and time again this very strong suggestion that there's an identity, a reflection, a value that somehow or another is shared by God the Creator and humankind, the creation. I won't dogmatically go into offering an interpretation of what that means. I leave that to your meditations. But we are the sons and daughters of God, not just figuratively, but quite literally. I hope and I pray that there is something meaningful for everybody here to be able to take away from this today and enjoy their and enlighten their holiday season a little bit more. Thank you, brothers and sisters. If anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to entertain anything.
Namaste. Thank you, Mark. Thank you. Thank you. That your talk fits in with the philosophy and our teachings perfectly. As
Good.
not a coincidence. Did anyone have any questions for Mark? Mark, let's see. I don't know if it's time to. I can only see a very small screen of you, but you're the
Yeah, let me stop sharing.
things. Yeah. How would that be? Okay. Does anyone have any questions for Mark?
Yeah, Mark, could you put that first screen that had the reference to look up on Google? I want to do that like right away.
Which one was that?
I think it was like
the paper by Wigner.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, hang on for 2 seconds. Let me just bring that up because otherwise I'll screw up the name. That one?
No, so it was like the first or second screen that you had.
Is that the slide you were looking for?
No, keep going. Keep going. The one right after that one. The next one. There you go. Well, yeah, that's
Gematria?
it. That was it. The unreasonable, yes.
Okay, let's go back up. There you go.
Thank you.
That paper is very easy to find and actually kind of fun to read. Easy reading. You'll never find anything by a Nobel Prize winner that's going to be quite that simple. But it's elegant. It's really beautiful. There's a thing that a lot of mathematicians still allude to, is that one way to judge, if you have two mathematical formulas that kind of describe physicists will often say the same thing. They'll say that if it's hard to decide, pick the one that is simpler and more elegant, more beautiful. They have a bottom line presumption that there's something that if something is beautiful, it tells you something intrinsic about the universe. And this paper is beautiful and recognizes something about that value.
Thank you, Mark.
So Mark, that last symbol that you had up, did you call that the Yorkshire?
Yeah, if you were like to try to Google it in English, the transliteration is usually spelled as Yosher.
Okay.
But again, it's the same root as Israel. It's Yod Shin Resh, Yshr in Hebrew.
And I don't know if I missed something there. Does that add up to 137 or?
No, actually, it adds up to 26, being the name of God, which itself has individual properties. No, I just offered that as another way to see that same reflection between the creator and the created. And I happen to love that one particularly because it's, all philosophy, all abstract geometry, everything else aside, you can see the name literally written in the form that we are in. We were created in the image. And I think sometimes it's lost on people how literally that's meant to be interpreted.
Wow, that's amazing stuff. I was kind of floating in my mind at maybe the -1, even if you flip that upside down, still God, us and God.
Again, that the infinite is somehow embedded in the finite is this absolutely incredible mystery about the relationship between the creator and the created. That pi, which you can never you could spend the rest of eternity doing division and you would never get the end of the number. And yet the number occurs as part of fixed finite existence all over the place. What's with that? How does that happen? That's an awesome mystery. But moreover, it tells us something about the relationship between the one and the many, between God and the created. It may not be an easy thing to put into words, but boy, oh boy, it is a cool thing to sit and meditate on and just kind of sit and bask in the light of.
Right. Oh, yeah. The amount of God's love is infinite.
Yeah.
I like that.
Well, once again, and thank you to everybody for the opportunity to be able to share that. I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you. And
Yeah, thank you.
we normally end our prayers and our presentations with namaste, which I know that you usually do too. I was surprised when you didn't, but maybe it's because you're not finished.
No, but I will take the moment. Namaste. Thank you all.
Namaste to you. We thank you, Mark, for coming today and sharing with us, and we hope that you will come back. I've asked Chris to put you on our mailing list, so you will get a constant contact with a link, probably on Fridays, that will tell you about the presentation coming up for the following Sunday from now on. So
Thank you.
You could be, you are now officially part of our family.
Thank you. Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah. Does anyone else have anything they'd like to ask Mark or to comment? Okay, thanks, Mark. Fred, you have a song ready for us.
Oh, hello, hello. I'll try a little ditty here. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Right on. Right on. I'll try something that's
A little bit louder, Fred.
Yeah, hang on. Do 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 do. Can you hear me now?
Better. Yeah.
That should be better, right? There we
Yeah.
go. Kind of got myself shoved in here a little bit tight. Sorry. You know what it brought to my mind is one of my physics teachers in senior year of high school when we were talking about the concept of infinity, especially in a three-dimensional world, and talking about the nature of pi. And one of the reasons he gave that a way, I guess you could say, to visualize the math is that in our modern ideas of physics, everything's in a spherical model. So if you're looking at for the end of a point, when it hits a curved axis, there is no end to that point. So therefore, there can be no end to the measurement. And eventually, if all space and time is curved, and a line will eventually, an infinite line will come back on itself and turn again and again and again and again in the cycle. And one of the things that it brought to my mind, what Mark was speaking about, is there was a pretty well-known astronomical constant that they'd used quite often that kind of helped them measure the distance between stars. And lately, in the past 3 or 4 years, they're finding that that's not really working as well as they thought, and they have to adjust the math because apparently with the measurements that we're doing with the more powerful instruments and technologies, is we're finding out that the universe is actually expanding faster than the constant allowed for. And they're not really sure how fast or why that is and why that changes at the edge of the universe, why things are going faster than the math allows. So once again, science is always learning, right? I mean, that's what it's all about. I mean, and once you find a theorem that can be proven, that's when it becomes something that you can study and that you can quantify, let's say, right? Something you can measure and then quantify. So, but in our world, we definitely know that everything's changing. So even the math, and even as we learn more, we find out that there's sometimes even more questions to ask the more that we learn. So anyway, this song is a real simple song called Affirmation. I think all of us know this song. If you don't, it goes, you are beautiful, you are strong, you are healthy, you are whole, you are radiant, you are powerful, and you are now coming into your own. And then we'll switch that to I, and then we'll sing it to each other, that we. So here we go. You are whole. You are radiant. You are powerful. You are now coming in to your home. I am beautiful. I am strong. I am healthy. I am whole. I am radiant. I am powerful. I am now coming in to my home. We are beautiful. We are strong. We are healthy. We are whole. We are radiant. We are powerful. We are now coming in to our own. I am beautiful. You are strong. I am healthy. You are whole. We are radiant. We are powerful. Yeah. We are now living to our own. We are now coming in our own.
Thank you, Fred. Thank you, Fred. What a powerful way to end our service today. I want to remind everybody that we have a Course in Miracles study on Wednesday evenings. We are now meeting at 6 o'clock on Zoom. And we have a Power of Eight meeting on Thursdays, which is facilitated by our own Margaret Cheesebro. And they are not meeting on Zoom, but they are meeting in spirit, and they're praying for and concentrating on those people that we know of that need extra energy. Would you like to say something, Margaret? We've not talked about Power of Eight for quite a while. Margaret, are you still there?
There, yeah. Sorry. We're meeting at 6:30 on Thursdays, and I try to send out a list of those people we're focusing on early Thursday afternoon. And if you would like to get that list, but you know that you're not going to be able to participate in Power of Eight all the time, that's okay. Just let me know, and I would be happy to send you, trying to get chat here so I can put my email address down. Yeah, just email me and tell me that you'd like to get it because it has a lot of information about what's happening with people in the group. So I'm writing my email now. So
When we were meeting in the church, we were able to face meet. What we would do, they would form a circle, and those people that needed the help and the healing would be put in the center of the circle, and we would meditate and pray on those people. But since COVID, we're not able to do it. We do it in spirit. So we do it at 6:30 on Thursday evening. Is that correct, Margaret?
exactly. So in our own home, I don't know who else is joining me, but I trust some people are. And we just put those people that are on the list one by one in the center of our loving thoughts and prayers until we sense that that they have received something, and then we go on to the next one.
Well, thank you very much, Margaret. Mike, or Susan, do you have anything you'd like to say about our Course in Miracles group and meeting?
Is Susan still with us?
I think she's gone.
I think she left. Go ahead, Mike.
Well, like Ron said, we're still doing Course in Miracles on Wednesday evening. Changed the time to 6 o'clock. Susan's time is different than ours, and she's doing this from Belize. But I would encourage anybody to, give us a shot again. And Susan is really a good facilitator. Every week she has a particular topic that she has in mind that she's researched through the course. And we do some workbook lessons that kind of set the tone for all that. And then she picks a particular section in the text that we can go to that we can elaborate on it. So it's not just kind of random thing, and you're not just kind of going to be, entering our group with a complete unknown, where are you in the text and that kind of thing, or along the book. But I mean, every week is a pertinent topic. And I really would encourage people to join us and just, give it a fair shot, man. I think you'll like it. So, and it's great conversation. So anyway, that's my bit.
Oh, thank you, Mike.
Ron,
Yes.
I'd just like to remind people that the calendars will be out on the left-hand side of the front porch at Fellowship this next week. Please stop by and get yours. 2021 calendars.
And although we do not, we don't dwell on money, it is still, we have bills to, and we're not meeting, but we still have bills to meet. And your contributions that you send in to the church really mean a lot. They're enabling us to keep things going and to maintain our building and the services that we have to pay for. We do still have expenses, even though we're not able to pass a basket. So if you'd like to send in, well, we'd appreciate it. I wanted to
And
welcome all those.
And on that note, I wanted to mention that the board voted to donate $500 instead of Christmas Kids. We're donating it to Child Haven, and Rhonda and Dee are going to go shopping for a list of things that Child Haven needs. They are at capacity with children right now, so that is where our Christmas Kids Fund is going this year. So if you have any money that you want specifically to go to Christmas Kids, make sure you put a note in there designating how much.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Was there anything else that came out of our board meeting that anyone can remember other than it's still unsafe to meet? So we're going to still continue on Zoom.
That's the only thing I can remember. We didn't really have a lot to discuss, but
Okay.
anyway, the Christmas Kids was the main thing.
Excellent. So today is St. Nicholas Day. And for me, that means that from December 6th until January 6th, it's all one big celebration. So happy St. Nicholas Day.
All right. Thank you, Jenny.
Jenny, I saw where you had mentioned pray for Annie. Is there something we should know, or just
Well,
in general?
Well, Steve and I at least are in kind of a pickle because Pam is there. Annie, the sciatica apparently got way worse. And so she's having medication to, kill the pain. And so Pam is kind of also in a, she's not exactly in a stasis situation. So if we could just keep Annie in our prayers. And the problem, the pickle that Steve and I are in is that I told George and I told Margaret and about what was going on. And then I asked, or then I got answered from Pam, is it okay to share this? And she said, not yet. So it's like, okay, well, I sort of shared it, but yeah. So
Is Annie at Pam's place, or is she still staying in her apartment?
I believe she's still in her apartment. She's got a hospital bed and all of the stuff that goes with that. And Pam is, monitoring a lot.
Well, so she probably has maybe some home nursing or something. Somebody's coming in on a regular basis, hopefully. So that
Something like that.
yeah. Okay. Well, that's great. Well, anyway, we just need to include Annie. We need to include Bob. We need to include George in our prayers because they are in the most need right now. Neva, is your heart in better shape, or you haven't found out anymore?
They're trying to set up an appointment in Albuquerque for an ablation. But like I told the group, I'd sure like to have a vaccination before I go down there. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Well, we're all anxiously waiting the vaccination, and some of us probably even don't want to take the vaccination. But I am one. I'm anxiously waiting the time when we can all be vaccinated and we can all be better shape. It'll be better than what we got now. So that's my opinion.
Has anybody heard anything about Phyllis?
Phyllis?
Phyllis. Uh-huh.
No, I have not. Is anyone?
My contact for Phyllis is Shug McNall, and because we've all been in the drumming group Ashe, but we stopped meeting when the shutdown got a little tighter a couple of weeks ago. But I can find out.
Would
I
you?
believe she's moved in with her son.
I think that was a while ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was, but
Okay.
don't have any, she wasn't answering any emails, so I don't know if hers got canceled or I had one for him, but I'm not getting any response there either. So I haven't heard anything in quite a while.
Okay.
Okay, Jerry, do you remember who is our speaker next week?
Yeah, the Fred is.
Fred is? All right, so we got Fred again next week. All of our speakers are quality speakers. We all have valuable things to share. And Mark just went right along with the rest of our philosophy. He had some information I don't think most of us have ever heard, so it was pretty good. Is there anything else anyone would like to share, or someone that they would like to request prayer for? In that case, does anyone want to do the benediction, or you want me to do it? Okay, I'll do it. Father, Mother God, we thank you for this day. We thank you for this way for us to join. We thank you for protecting us from diseases and from the things of the world that can harm us. We thank you for our congregation, that we come together in spirit and in love of one another. We thank you for everything that we have, everything that we see, everything that exists. We equate to you, and we ask that you would guard us during this time of low energy, whenever the earth is coming to the point where it will change, and our seasons will change, and our days will get longer, and our energy will increase. We thank you for this time that we can reflect on those things and gather our energy. In the name of the Christ consciousness, amen. So mote it be. Namaste.
And we thank you for Jerry's cat.
He's so loving.